Hey there, it's another beautiful day. Let's watch some stuff.
They have an identical PL code, which is on the back of the packet. They are the same tablet.
Oh, right.
Not the same active ingredient, the same tablet.
Oh, wow.
So big pharmaceutical companies spend millions of pounds promoting this. Go with the name you know. Go with the name you know. And that's just baloney in most cases. And I'll prove it to you. They're identical. So let's take this. Beecham's all-in-one hot lemon menthol powder, 10 sachets, £4.99. Active ingredients, paracetamol, phenylephrine, and guaifenesin. Wilko's, £1.85, 10 sachets. Look on the back. Hopefully the graphics will turn over as I do that. There we go. The PL code, 12063/0104. They are the same tablet.
And just remind us again the price difference.
$4.99 for the one branded Beecham's, $1.85 for the one in Wilko.
Wow.
That is an absolute fact. Once upon a time in a previous life, I was a licensed pharmacy technician, and we would order medication all the time, and it would come from the exact same company but be labeled differently. So yes, same stuff.
You know, there's supposedly like a SCP Foundation
with the different type of organisms. And
yeah, like it's it's basically like the Men in Black and like that. They're the ones that do all the paranormal. So whatever happens, like say ghosts, anomalies, random like that, and they like either capture them or they do experiments on them. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't know if I believe in that to an extent because I feel like something that secretive would stay secret.
It's something that's not called SCP, but
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like that, and I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I feel like they have some real secret stuff. Like, oh yeah, we just gotta keep these locked up.
Yeah. I think in social media it's kind of like a joke. But like recently there was a guy, his name is, you ever heard of who Bob Lazar is?
I heard the name.
So Bob Lazar was a guy who worked in a facility called S4 and it was like south of Area 51. And he supposedly said that everything in there is something like the SCP. Like he's seen devices that control the weather. He's seen like new elements. But like what I'm thinking is, right, I heard the CIA actually would pay people to start up conspiracies. So like we would never know what is real or not. So like say he pays this guy Bob Lazar, like, yo,
to say something fake that's far left from what we really got.
Exactly. So now they're not even in the ballpark.
So I just learned about the SCP Foundation today, and I am super excited to learn more about it, and I will bring it to you as it comes along. As far as Bob Lazar, I think that man is perfectly credible. My personal opinion. And with these stories, so he's talking about, oh, people are paid to spread conspiracy theories. I think it's more like some drunk guy at the bar going, hey, you know what I saw? And then wildfire.
There is no job worth $2 million a year. That's why they pay athletes these fantastic salaries. I was listening to the radio the other day. They just contracted to pay one player on one team $6 million a year.
And why is that?
It's the Roman circus. What does the emperor do when the people become restive and when the people are asking questions and when the people don't like the policies of the emperor? He sends them to the circus. He creates a circus. He builds a giant coliseum. Then he begins to throw the Christians to the lions. And he has great chariot races and football games and basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world, so that they don't have the time to learn what the truth is, so they don't ever get smart enough to learn how they're being manipulated, so they don't ever question the emperor.
Give them bread and circuses, and they will never revolt. That is so true.
This map should be a wake-up call. The people in the orangish countries aren't replacing themselves. They have sub-replacement birth rates. You probably already saw it on the map, but there is only one region in the globe that will have net population growth. 6 countries are going to be responsible for over half of all global population growth by the end of the century. 5 of those are in Africa. It's hard to exaggerate just how much that's going to scramble the geopolitical landscape by the end of the century.
The World Economic Forum's plan of depopulation is well in effect. It's too expensive to have a family, and a lot of younger people are opting to not.
Google's been caught playing dirty with their Pixel phones. They told influencers in their Team Pixel program to only show Pixel phones. not competitors. If they didn't, they'd get kicked out. Crazy, right? This wasn't for regular reviewers, just for social media folks. People got mad when they found out. It felt like Google was trying to control what influencers say. Google quickly said, oops, our bad. They removed that rule. But it makes you wonder, how many other secret deals are out there between tech companies and influencers? It's a reminder to always think twice about what you see online. Not everything is as honest as it seems. What do you think? Should companies be allowed to do this?
Advertising is a really interesting animal. It really is. Like when a sponsor comes in and they're like, hey, we're going to pay you this money, influencer, to use our product and show it and say this and blah, 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 right? You're doing a commercial spot for them for money. That's how it works. But when it's like, you can only use this phone, only ever, don't ever show any other phone. I think that's overstepping your bounds because that person still has a life. They should do your spot and that's it. I have a whole bunch of stuff dug up on Google today, so buckle up.
Your DNA is being sold to clone people in the future. This holiday season, DNA testing kits were among the most popular gifts. These kits allow buyers to receive genetic testing and analysis, usually by sending in a tube of saliva. Once testing is done, users receive a comprehensive report about their ancestry. The long game here is not to make money selling kits. 23andMe also engages in biobanking, a practice in which the company stores the physical genetic samples. The policy doesn't clearly explain the purpose of biobanking, but explains that the company reserves the right to access and analyze your stored sample. Scientists are already making breakthroughs in age reversal technology and human cloning. In the future, when these technologies become possible, 23andMe could sell young DNA samples back to the user or use genetic information for these types of sciences.
We talked about all the crazy things that DNA was being used for a few days ago, but cloning in the future, that is wild. That's wild.
When you go to the Google search engine, which by the way, you shouldn't do. So if you're doing that, don't do it anymore, please. Okay, just use Brave, their browser, use their search engine. They don't spy on you. Google search engine is a surveillance platform. From a business perspective, that's all it is. Mm-hmm. Now, it's true. We think it's a nice free index, that's given to us by a kindly librarian, and it's going to lead us to the right information, just like a librarian would. But that's not really what it is. It's a surveillance platform that is designed to trick you into revealing personal information about yourself, and then that information is monetized.
Yeah, Google is totally monitoring your search habits. So whenever you're typing something in, it's saving that information and selling it to the highest bidder so that they can advertise to you based on your searches. And that's why we're like, why is this popping up? I just talked about it a couple days ago, right? Yeah, that's how it is. I started using DuckDuckGo thanks to Mr. Jerry Howard. I'm not 100% certain if it's more secure. Actually, I think it is. I think. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by today. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover, please let me know in the comments down below and I'll do my best to get it in an upcoming video. If you're having a good time, won't you hit that like button for me and consider subscribing? Then come back tomorrow because I'm making a new episode every day.
Facebook has a profile of you whether you know it or not. Even if you've never signed up for Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp, which are owned by Facebook, they maintain a shadow profile of everyone who's not in their system. The way that this works is if you have friends who have you in the contact list of their phones, when they download any of the Facebook apps, Facebook takes their contact list. In there is your phone number, which is a unique identifier, your email, maybe your street address, maybe a picture, and that all gets aggregated into a single profile. So Facebook not only knows that personal information about you, it knows everybody that you know because it got you from their contact lists. If they know each other, Facebook can use that to build a profile of your interests. It can also use your photo in their facial recognition algorithm to find other photos of you on Facebook. So even if you've never been in the system, if you eventually come in and sign up, it'll be fully populated with your interests, where you went to school, who you know. And the only way you can do anything about it to get Facebook to delete it is to sign up. So they really have you caught with a shadow profile.
And then when you sign up, it's like, do you want to add your contacts? And you go, yes. And then it happens some more. It's a vicious cycle.
Let me ask Mr. Davis, if I might, have you ever searched on GoFundMe for your cancer drug, Keytruda?
No, I have not.
Okay. We have. I and my staff have. And we have found over 500 stories of people trying to raise funds to pay for their cancer treatments. One of those stories is a woman named Rebecca, a school lunch lady from Nebraska, with 2 kids who died of cancer after setting up a GoFundMe page because she could not afford to pay for Keytruda. Rebecca had raised $4,000 on her GoFundMe page, but said the cost of Keytruda and her cancer treatment was $25,000 for an infusion every 3 weeks. Mr. Davis, and please, yes or no, is it true that the list price of Keytruda is $191,000 a year in the United States?
That is close to being true, yes.
Thank you. Is it true that that same exact drug can be purchased in Canada for $112,000 a year and $44,000 a year in Japan?
Generally, yes.
Mr. Davis, even though the price of Keytruda is 1/4 of the price in Japan compared to the United States, does your company, does Merck make a profit selling Keytruda in Japan?
We do.
I got nothing else to add to that.
Wait a minute. So what do you just climb in and boom, you feel better? That's it? It's all gone? All the pain, all the suffering is gone? Yeah. Really?
Maybe one day. But we're way far off from that now. Once they start pulling out that alien tech, maybe.
This genetic manipulation is described in the following account. Ningazida caused a deep sleep to descend upon Enki, Ninmah, Adamu, and Tiamat. Ninmah, another one of the geneticists, Anunnaki. He then extracted DNA from the rib of Enki and inserted it into the rib of Adamu. Again, this dovetails and goes hand in hand with the biblical accounts of humanity being, created, or other groups of human beings being created from the rib of Adam. Okay? He then extracted DNA from the rib of Ninmah and inserted it into the rib of Tiamat. He then awakened the 4 of them and said to Enki, 2 chromosomes have been added to their DNA. They're now capable of procreating on their own. The new hybrids were returned to the orchards of the Eden, where they became aware of their nakedness and ability to procreate. Tiamat made aprons of leaves for them to wear so they could be distinguished from the other animals. Again, this dovetails almost exactly with the tales from Genesis.
I love the Anunnaki story. I absolutely love it. And I think it's incredible how it is prevalent in so many different creation stories.
Operation Northwood shocked many when it was revealed that in 1962, the U.S. Department of Defense had concocted a plan to stage fake terrorist attacks on its own cities. The objective was clear: to create a wave of national outrage and fear that would justify an invasion of Cuba. This chilling proposal was part of America's Cold War strategy, aimed at combating the perceived threat of communism spreading from Fidel Castro's regime. The plan included horrifying details. Fake bombings, hijackings, and even shootings were to be orchestrated to appear as though they were committed by Cuban forces. The architects of Operation Northwoods believed that these tragic events would galvanize public opinion and garner global support for military action against Cuba, effectively removing Castro from power. However, the proposal was never executed. It reached the desk of President John F. Kennedy, who firmly rejected the idea, concerned about the ethical implications of deceiving the American public and the global community. This decision marked a significant moment, reflecting Kennedy's commitment to transparent and ethical governance, despite the pressures of the Cold War. Decades later, the revelation of Operation Northwoods has continued to stir debates about government transparency and the lengths to which a nation might go to protect its interests. The story serves as a stark reminder of the fine line between national security and the manipulation of public perception.
It's an awful lot like that movie Wag the Dog. Obviously, this particular event happened long before this movie came out, but it's still the same thing. The media sets up a bunch of false flag situations, and they're like, hey, this is what's happening, to stir the public into supporting one particular side or another.
Google's developing an AI that can model your DNA and RNA. Google DeepMind is introducing the improved version of its AI model that can not only predict the structure of proteins, but all life molecules. This allows scientists to generate biomolecular structural predictions, as well as helping with pharmaceutical drug discovery. Will AI soon be able to modify your DNA structure? AI is advancing at an incredible rate, and it's honestly scary to see where it's going.
I have been watching Sam Fisher's Media, Mindspace, and Manipulation, And it's a series. He's got like 6 or 7 videos on it. It's a lot of wonderful content. And Google has their hand in some serious stuff, like in the DNA companies, right? The Ancestry, the 23andMe. Google's got a big stake in them. And that's terrifying to know that they're able to do that, or they're working on doing that. And once they get their hands on that DNA, who knows what's going to happen?
Did you know in 2017 Fitbit accidentally released sensitive secret military locations? When Strava released their heat map, a security researcher named Nathan Rooser realized that they were accidentally revealing the locations of sensitive bases. It turns out soldiers had forgotten to turn off their Fitbits when they were entering into these sensitive locations, and the bases had forgotten to check. Sensitive movements and activities in locations like Afghanistan and Syria were there to see for anyone with internet access.
Fitbit, owned by whom? Google. Yeah, way to go, Google. And they're constantly tracking you through your Fitbit. They know what you're doing when you're doing it, and that's when they know when to target you for specific advertising. Well, I mean, they did. I think they're discontinuing it now because they came up with their like Google Pixel Watch, but still, Google, they're watching you.
If you have a Fitbit or some other sort of fitness tracker, check the privacy policy to see how information is going to be shared that they're collecting on you. They could take your period tracking information and give it to the government in order to comply with a law or regulation. Be careful out there.
But wait, there's more.
I have an iPhone, and if I move from here and go over there and sit with my Democrat friends, which will make them real nervous, does Google track my movement? Does Google, through this phone, know that I have moved here and moved over to the left? It's either yes or no.
Not by default. There may be a Google service which you've opted in to use, and if...
So Google knows that I am moving over there. It's not a trick question. You know, you make $100 million a year, you ought to be able to answer that question. Does Google know through this phone that I am moving over there and sit next to Mr. Johnson, which would make him real nervous? It's his question. It's yes or no.
I wouldn't be able to answer without looking at...
you can't say yes or no.
Without knowing more details.
Yes, the answer is yes, because everybody has those contracts, those agreements, right? You get them and it's like 50 million pages long, and then you just hit accept, and then you move on with your product. But deep in there is some corporate jargon that says we're going to watch you and we're going to follow you and we're going to see where you are at all times and we're going to sell your stuff to everybody else. Of course, you don't read it because why would they be so deceiving? Because they're Google and they can, and it's all about money.
In the 1980s, physicist Paul Benowitz was convinced he'd stumbled upon communications between underground aliens and their off-world counterparts. Living near Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, Benowitz intercepted electronic transmissions that he believed were definitive proof of an alien colony beneath our feet. He asserted that these extraterrestrials were living undercover among us. Despite attempts by the government to debunk his claims, some believe that Benowitz was silenced to prevent the disclosure of Earth's concealed residence. Paul suffered a mental breakdown and was admitted to a psychiatric facility. He withdrew from the UFO community after this episode.
There's definitely a pattern here. Within the UFO community, or any conspiracy community as it were, there are people who speak out and they have evidence or some kind of proof to show that what they're saying is credible, and then they're either taken out or taken to one of their bases to work for the government, or they're just made to be crazy. And then they go crazy.
Tried to explain to him that what he saw wasn't, but he would never believe me. He eventually went crazy and he some years later. But some of what he was seeing was he took pictures of strange looking lights and orbs. And in fact, I sat, and not just me, Jerry Miller, who was he had been a Project Blue Book investigator some years before, and he was in the intelligence staff at Kirtland, not with OSI, but with another agency. him and I sat in a room, probably not any bigger than this, with really tall ceilings. And Paul was sitting, and we just had dinner, and we came in and we had some coffee, and the lights were down. In fact, none of the ceiling lights were on. We had just some table lights on. And we were talking. It was 8 or 9 o'clock at night in a winter night. And he says, he was explaining to us what he was seeing. And all of a sudden, we see this orb up in the corner of his room. And I looked at it and I watched it. Nobody else saw it at first. And I kind of elbowed. There was 3 of us there. It was me, Jerry, and another agent by the name of Steve Atzett. And I hit, and Jerry looked up and he said, and we didn't say anything to Paul. And then started flying around the room. And then, of course, Paul saw it. He said, well, there it is. We looked around like, what the heck is this thing, you know? And so we watched it for maybe 20 seconds and it disappeared. And went right back to that spot.
Yet the government made Paul out to be crazy. I totally believe that story. Absolutely. I don't ever, well, I do. I have like a 70-30 when it comes to alien stuff, but I totally believe that. Yeah.
Well, everybody's focused on Diddy and Hollywood. There's actually been some more serious things that have occurred that actually impact all of us at another level. I've tried to record this second part like 4 times. So there's a lot that's happening. First of all, Congress is considering passing a 28th Amendment. This would allow, in the case of a mass casualty event, for multiple members of the elected body to be replaced expeditiously so that the governance can continue. You picking up what I'm laying down? In case a lot of them go away due to some political violence, then they can just be replaced in some new and much faster way. Probably not dissimilar to how I saw one of their parties get one of their nominees into the presidential running. Anyway, I digress. Second thing is the UN decided that the U.S. is going to forfeit about $150 billion of revenue in taxes for some reason that they didn't explain, in addition to expanding their already aggressive and borderline insane climate change policies. So the U.S. just signed over another $150 billion. I have no idea why. Probably because we're in the greatest economy ever.
I love the sarcasm at the end because we are in such a fantastic economy right now that we can just sign over hundreds of billions of dollars to whomever for whatever, which is crap. But that is an interesting amendment that they're trying to put in. It kind of feels like they're expecting something to happen.
Much worse than you think. So however bad you think it is, it's much worse. So I can just give you 2 numbers and maybe that will summarize it for you. Google alone in this year's presidential election, if we don't do some extraordinary things to stop them, which might be impossible, Google alone will be able to shift between 6.4 million and 25.5 million votes in the presidential election, generally speaking, with no one having the slightest idea that they've been manipulated, and generally speaking, without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace. There's a problem. If the platform itself wants to support one candidate or one party, there's nothing you can do. Google's home page is seen 500 million times a day just in the United States. Is the first audience in the world to know, because we just calculated this, that even though it's still early in the election process, right now, Democrats are getting register to vote reminders on Google's homepage at about 2.5 times the rate that Republicans are. I'm talking about proportions here. I'm saying that proportionally speaking, I'm saying that Democrats are getting those reminders at 2.5 times the rate that Republicans are. Right now, that's happening. Just to drive this point home, if Google is doing something like that, which they are because we're measuring it,
right,
and then at some point they're going to send out partisan mail-in-your-ballot reminders, and at some point they're going to send out partisan go-vote reminders, and they're also stacking the deck in their search results. So their search results are highly biased. I can actually send your audience to a web page, and you can actually see what the bias is right now on Google search. It's worse right now because they're doing more. They're using more techniques. Over the years, my team and I have been studying this now for more than 11 years. Over the years, we've discovered more ways of influencing people online that the internet has made possible and that have never, ever existed before in human history. The sad news is, the tragic news is, for our country and for our democracy, is that these techniques are controlled entirely or almost entirely by a couple of tech companies.
It all starts in your search bar. Once you start typing in, look at the stuff that it auto-populates as suggestions for what it thinks you're typing in. Those aren't the most popular things. Those are the ones that Google wants you to look at. Just like when the first page comes up, you usually pick the first few things on the first page. You don't scroll down 5 or 6 pages. You start at the top because those are the ones that are recommended to you. And they're specifically recommended to you for a very specific reason. Just pay attention to that. It's really weird. But, a lot of people are very firm in their political beliefs, so they won't be swayed. But those people who are uncertain, these things pop up and subliminally, they get you. Yeah, I had to throw a bit of UFO footage in there. I'm more inclined to believe the shaky home video stuff that's blurry versus this. It was too perfect. It was good, but it was too perfect. On that note, I'm going to call it for today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Come on back tomorrow. We're going to watch some new stuff. I'll say different things, and it's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day.